Gaya yoxatini. Yadu uhan. Sheet kakre hayati. Da kunjin katka dech tag shuhichen. Jan koaya ke hayati. Hast de geitayagachti saach. Yayidat kash atk. Ka guantan. Kawu owa. Du seek away dasta ya du ish aya. Yadu du yurkatangi. Koneya kuhi yatadach.
Yádi dat kettere kwartier. Dat is krachtig. Jacht genoeg. Ze goeie. Kwartier, kettere kwartier. De kina kwartier. Het is kwartier, ja. De kwartier, de kwartier. Ze weet zo het zit. Ja, Yádi dat. Atuha kawa je kuste. Akada gaat het kawa shit. Had ze kies kwasa te gelugu ja. Je dat wat je gauw doorste. A kawa de tele kaya. Had ze te. A kaya te je het ze ja echt. Had ze kies kwasa te je. A te het ze kwasa je. Had ze. Ja koop. Ja, itse kakvasia se. Saat vastaasi, ei keitä kakvasia.
Oh. قصة تدي خدنا.
Can you Akushiyekaya? So I think there was a mistake made on this. Sakuye was a Raven Clan song, Ducking Time.
Okay.
And now they're going into the Eagle Hat song, it looks like.
No.
Maybe. I don't have my book to check.
What's that? Did I just do H?
Yádi, dat kent er ook wat hier af. Dat is krachtig.
Sakuye. Dekina kashi. Kakachguk. Aka away. Yata.
Ja, ik weet er ook wat hier af. Zo krachtig zie je, ik weet er ook wat hier. Zo doe dit, gaat ik wat. Dit is ook het. Ik zeg ja, kijk want aan, dat kan je hele toezien uit die heen. Ja, dat. Ik zeg als je
The song we just heard was Sakuye.
Cheese.
Ze ziet gehad, krachtig zie je. Je has u zagen. Dan gaat het niet gooien, dan ga je het. Zelfs ka, je has u zagen, ja, het kan je zien. Zelfs ka, kan je gaan. Goed.
And today we call it Eagle Hat, Chok Sa.
Go. Yádi dat keiteke kotsia. Jesse, suklachati ja. Puutra jehata kohta jeh. Jeutua saajassa, jukuhan jeh. Jeesutista. A tehnikaa teetä tehnykin. Ja kiisat. Jesse. A tetua saaku ja. Haaksatiin ja haaji. Ta haaksitse. Ja haaksatiin juutua siisaavat. Huojelettu kahtia koutakat. Aja ohkeuvat he. Aja keetäköpät he. Ich iets kutstu ja haaji. Kut.
Thank you.
Yes.
The Uche Yanach, it's always customary by our Indian tradition that the songs that are sung are very sacred to our people. And these young people are learning the Indian culture, and they know what it means. Therefore, it's not a plaything for them, because they're learning the history, and it means a lot to them, both well through exercise and as well as expressing the words. And some of the songs are very sad to them after they learn the tradition. And so it's only customary that the opposite tribe would answer to their song. So I've been requested that 2 of the elders are being delegated to respond, and one is George Davis, and the other one will be Charlie Jim. Thank you. George? Uskitaanach iskositi sikoanach. Itoit kakontaan. Itoit sukoneti. Itoit seikahaatas. Kakontaan siteko kankatusiti. Ekonak kutsaare kiwa kausech. Itit kaat. Ishaka kakatutuwasa. Yak iskest. Astu aane. Takatete yukat kausiti. Ja kustiye. At ko haya itat. Hasen kut ilgit kustiye. Akak akat kautuwatin. Ayashe. Atat yada chikawih wakakhiye. Kitan hit ako. At ko ha. Kas. Shikakasi titi ham. Akdasak. Aitik. Ja, bisaat. Shikakasane. Yek keki shiyashe. Ja, isha sawe. Yek. Bisaat kawih wakti akhiye.
Avasa kolla kiisaava.
Keatustant. Ayahasis. Kajak. Anousin it shat. Kajak. Tashiye. Anousin yes at shat.
Kolla kiisaava.
Akitko has. Astut uwo. Ja. Kanaka. Showa. Kakasuate. Yahat kotuatiniya. Ayawitat. Yatatke. Takosat uksike. Akustiye. Kut kein tupik. Jada taksik. Jusanecha iskest.
Avasa
Kunis chish.
kolla kiisaava.
Nekpaat.
Kolla kiis.
Nekpaat. Jatkin.
Llell a de cawygig wwch achiye. Cachonach i ge. Cachonach i ge. Jen cawan et chanach gachtul sa gaconetu at gachtu sa ach.
Takshima. Kawata kausi kadasutiye. Katso edeshitan katsutiye. Kiskata. Ayaha ishas. Yes kaya kanutin. At katikek. Ishas ane. Khon. Katka kawanaye. Siyak. Yat kiyukunak ko awada etikwatank. Haslinget satiyade tiye. It's a Kashagoon and a Kunik, US Catholic Newton, Kakas, Half-Leaf Goas, Yay, the Yatkan, Hon, Kitchener, to Creek away the Wassa, Yes, hit the in the Nuke, yes, Aka, yes, Aka, Taste to the Kakyag, the Sa, yes, Akik. You, ja, Hindeusen, Itawe, Kokastiawe, Hadadowachu, Hadisano Hakik, Akawe, Yukatank, Yesanasniawe, Huayadu, Yes, Test to Kadu the Kagakusa, Kagakat Katsatia, Yukasat Kitnas. Akawe dosika khun I na ti do chakti thi asa you awe yan khadau sikha akshakun adi shakau tikhi akhtana wuski than da chan ga du sithi ayakh na khawusawe akhtis hatu you walk da chan kayan ga sithi Akhtayana nach, Chachatach ishina nach kawas, Chistas kuk isho de wasa, Eshitan, Chachkata chan kawaga du chiti, Yakawa da de watang, Akakat kusti, Yádi, Achkane, Hardlat, Aslachet, Gawach, Diesete, Slachet, Diesete, Achlies, Gewag, Achlies, Achkane, Hayatke, Anachut, Hayada, Angun, Deshitan, Yatke. Unnit. Deshitan, Yadikosete, Ayada Spin. Stuinana, Kedakota, Kikia, Kawachayada, Fisk, Kekuk, Fisk. Yayida Tower, Yatra, Yachatkoyek. Akawa kete dus tuja aynade haslinget sati okay tika achtanda tane okay ukitsak yesit takawa khonkhos astiyeke ukayek kerde kayek yayita achtanda tane te anu tinazat yakhana Achtanda tane oete, Atsayata, the Pachi to Achte, the Kude, the Achtanda tane, Sacheta, yo, Achtanda tane, Atjawe, Achtanda tane, Oke, Tika, Achti, the Wache, that you, oh, yeah, the Chakpaslakat. The Chakpaslakat of Tika, sing it hard to tea. Would you done it? Ya eat that, ya go. Katsuya hit, ya eat to Kanaya hit. Shoot the car. Hongas hit, they should hit. Yes, hit. Okay, Tika, the Shaki, Yakawaki, Kudio, Sakeda, Hadi, Naksati, Yakana, West to tea, two part of the tea, Chikaka, the water, Hachtin, Honfos, Ede, Kiskadi, now, which Kikan has tea, Yada, Yuka, Tangi, Yaka, they should eat that, a hat. Sakeda, Satia, Tukan Yakana, Sayo deha, Asta the Chankayan, Dark away to you on the Deshi Tank. Ayata, Ya, a Honroxete, Tawachan, Walder Sambalaf, but the Clark and a Tuba of that tea. Da just say as the Tico has, as the Daiji one day, Yisikuya Honk. Samuel G. Johnson here the second. Yes, no. To it our cooked tea. No, that's so out the team. To think of what's a tea. Ya they should eat that. Yakana, I was just a tonguing. I was just a tonguing your eyes, keep you on. At the way that's too far the tea was new. Too far the tea was new. Ach, too, yak, Yatcha, halfing the Chati, Yatcha, Yatcha. What ya got so think it was called the Egan, I thought you but thank you. One can eat so the Haskatna, a cow and no wood. The secretary got to Sydney. One can eat so the state I can't hour. It that's now. Yakana, Yatcha, two parts of what the tea. When the cheese shower the naked, you that's the tea. At train, Hayati, city. Kakatu Nika, put the tin, the Hadadi at the ya. In the tuna got two art cooked there. Yeah, yes, took off at the tea, and the cheese.
Plachir a tongue clean, Clash dasa akinayi uti.
Siya ko se ko siya. Baka na hakene ka do siya. Ja ita to ka ha ju sisak. Ja shautot la taaqi haasingit sapi. Tak ha ju ka to na naftitu. Ja silaski ona ha tasuonak. Koaksit takta chuna sa yawatan kaji. Just haji ta kuna takti. Hasis ko sa ate kaya kaya. Achawa kaya ta kantu sitawa. Chayo tane kawa chawa shuti kwas. Gitu kwao. Hatu ye tinde. Chakaya ta yusa tu quicken. Ochiya ki kaya ta hacht. Ya yukotan. Ja itat kusitek ye itak tishkoye ko hatan kia. Yaklis ko itikanek. Eke kuk ho yukotan. Ye goksane. Shishaya. Lord, Jesus Christ, kitan. Doch die kanani isas. Wo etso kitan. Tayo ko kitan. Ako ko patan is. Te تشكا قد قاطت قاطع خدنا تقي تدخل تشوفانا والسيدة قوسوة تستيا أنا تقصان شاقة قاطع يادي قينة يختار لي كوخا هزوسته يشيد كان كاغونتان أجيو تلقى كوشاخ جيوته أخليل كوهاس خانة سلسليل كوهاس يقوك دي خسوقيا شانت كاكيت يدك أجيو يا إيدت أخنق السؤال يا طاق الشخوات خاختو يتي يا أخ إيساس أول ليسة يتلوك خيك تايسا وقتوا أشكوش أنك فتيني شيتهينا يتودك سيختك يشيدك أجوا أختواسكو أيا خنيك أخليك يا وتليخن أتود أوتليخن يقوش خيك أقا يقوخك قيا أتدك قشينا يو خاب خنقشك خيشك قوكش يقوش أياتي قيت كيك قدنا وتقيت كيك قد قائدتا وكي ويكش يوقتكو آخا كيشك نستطيخ نتيج يوقت ستيدت يا إيدت يا وش كان خططات يقوش قيك يا قصطيخ يا خات هس قصانة أخصاني هس يا هاتشقن قصانة أخكي أوتيقا شتودا كتوتسئ يا يك أتختوشيخ أجوا أخكي أوتيقا يا يك خشيك تصطيخ هستخوت خواكينا تت يقوش خيك هستو جنهاي وستخوت أخكينا تت أخي أوتيقا خيانيش كنا كيدو نقشيوتي نقيقو تشيو يك spirit, that's a spirit song. And off up and type on that side, you have to stand up and hold your hands up Just kakakaktachuch. You yek ata kut ken tuki kaya hakustia chita tayo kakatan. Shaya tehena tayo tunakaw ha hakustia. Wutis khana tunakaw ha. Wujawa na sa tunakaw ha. Tasaya nakikitat. Hayaw na ya tukina. Siyateko, stakatuha na ya sasateko, yahatachan kisane, kusakan, yatachun sate, yatachun yukatan, hasin git satiye, kutken na kike, tet katu tusit, atusitu sate akchi yakaw yukatan ke, tam, yeah, to access the Shantu, that test quarters to carcass the high, course test us out there, Hatsuye had not teach. Sitsi at Kokahen, you use Kasat Kanukun, yeah, what options are Shanto, what's the Hunuksuye, what options to Shanto? Yeah, that's gonna cheese. You eat haka, yak isasaye, you eat the huache, kaik to the shika, achis to yege yaksihan, kaya has to not the hatina, yak you say to the katkuku, away at Shahatan, yak ooh, I at Shahatan, achis kohast, a two tachnu ade. Ach, die is een neer, ach, tasjes, twee koek, stakkatasaka, kwantaan, dat kan geen gassen zitten, ach, die zelf, dat zijn heel goed. Jaka, zou dan nee, ga je, kijk wat is, stakkat je gaan, wat ach, kijk, gas. Kijk, gewoon nog, hier dat, Listo que estamos. Achawa. Ten al dat gaat gewoon nog te aangeven. Ja, ze je gaat achter ach, kakas, die kan nog zo aan toe, dat, ach, hast du Shakia, den Sochtiwa. Sie du Saka, Sochtiwa. Stakkat die Hanya dagi ade. Ja, door zegt ik dat ook geen utika, je kan niet gaan, je kan nog niet gaan. Ja, dat is toch de nuke, ja. Kon dat precies, atras, teta heen, ja, daar gaat het dus ook wat hier. Heen gaat je keu, ook je toe. Heen gaat. Hakuyo sakat at wako tutu at aksana hakuyo aka ikhashata wayante ikhwahu hatet khawa ayakhot yakha cha iya kasten ikhawa ya ya yakshawa ya sanne has kasati iko kakhom ja, kan oké. Kunnen cheese, gaat dus de gek. Ja, gaat toch wat neer. Ja, zie gehad dat gaat dus saai goed hè. Testek thuis gaat de ook. Zij je goed die kat gewacht dat ze goed toe toch geen gaat. Je dat gestoord nog kijk op dit is. Wee.
Just want to reflect for a little bit before we keep going.
Yeah.
Big stuff. These are huge things.
So the last paragraph, he says, I'm calling you to the beach so I can marry you. And she says, huh, let's call Yeah, ugh, God, not with the way my skin is, because long ago the women, when you got married, your skin had to be, or was supposed to, you stayed out of the sun for like months and months so that your skin was white before you got married.
Well, too, yeah, like why would it be khas as well? Like what would we expect here from my
That's
skin?
a hide, or no, correct? Cross is an animal, right?
Ye
Oh,
kinda.
or do I have the wrong word?
Well, it is skin, but like okay, so glee and ugh, those are two different things, right?
Yeah,
Glee, and what's the difference? Ugh, glee, ugh, glee, ugh.
meat, and I don't know the other one.
Fish meat.
Oh,
Duke,
okay.
khas, duke.
Okay.
So it's like the skin of a fish or a frog. So it's very thin. So it's
Mm.
probably also a bit of a joke about being very quite elderly.
Yeah, old.
I get this. I would probably translate it as well, not with this frog skin of mine, which is
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
you know. So like, but just to get the so like seeing the depth of this stuff. That's why a class like this is really important. Like I know it flies by, we're in the deep waters, but like nobody alive, I don't think, can do this kind of stuff. And like maybe a couple people. And so we want to hold on to it so we could bring this back. Like, and they just did this, like just
Yeah,
boom. You could hear, and you could hear him like starting to just improv what he's doing while he's also continually referring back to the songs, back
yeah.
to things that were said, back to
They
things.
were concerned. They were worried that there had to be responses, but they weren't prepared to do the actual responses.
Mhm.
So instead, they brought out their ooh in response and talked about it, and that was good enough.
And no big notes or anything like that. Like it's gotta, can't write on your hand or anything. But just there's some stuff that just make me cry. It's just so good. It's just so incredible and just like this one, that's an 8 minute masterpiece. This one, it's 257 side C. Um, and it needs to be studied in depth. Like so many things that this particular speaker, and lots of them before, that they just, and you see how they're just ramping the whole thing. It's like everything, it just keeps building on itself. But like I think if you just live in the translation, you don't quite catch that. Like the things that they're doing. Um, yeah. What were some other things I was thinking?
Definitely everything was all high tone. The whole height, like nothing but high tone. Everything was way up there. Which is, I think pretty common for some things like this, it seems, but he sure was made it a point to stay way up there the whole time and speak way, so I mean everything was just way high, and I don't know, I guess that's it was a way to I'm not sure. I mean, just like
Well,
During
first,
oh,
go ahead.
during General Assembly, probably one of the first General Assemblies I've ever had a chance to be the worker at. Mark Jacobs and Franco Williams were well. Mark Jacobs started out, and as soon as he started out, he walked away from the mic. He raised up his voice and started speaking. And I remember because somebody told me get the mic to him, and I tried to give him the mic, and he pushed me out of the way, and he started speaking out loud to the crowd. And then Franco Williams stood up and kind of started talking back to him. And it was the same thing, tried to give him a mic and he pushed it away. And I believe it was your dad that told me that it was, back in the day, that was kind of the thing that you did as a sign of strength, being a strong speaker. You're able to speak to the room without the magic mic in front of your face. You're able to carry your voice across the room to everybody, and that was considered a sign of strength. So that's just what I was taught.
That was a traditional speech style.
Right. And so I would just continue to come back and say there's different types of Tlingit. And we're not talking about dialects, we're talking about like social situations, right? So I think the first one is people who know each other very, very well and nobody is listening. Because then it's just free flowing, lots of, you can talk about anything, just like in English. Like if you really know someone and no one else is listening, you can just really flow. And there's a lot of teasing, jokes, other stuff, like very little as long as nobody's hurting anybody or hurting their feelings. But then when someone comes in and you don't know that person, that's a totally different way of talking because you could still be yourself and be very relaxed, but you got to be very cautious because they might be your client opposite or they might, go back to their people and be like, they just talk any old way. Even though they're talking that way when they're among their close friends. But so that's kind of phase two. And then phase three is if you've been asked to talk to people in public for some reason. And now you've got to be a lot more conscious of who's there and what you're saying and why you're saying it. And then for me, phase four is probably storytelling. And then storytelling has these very specific sort of things that you're supposed to do, these lines that you're supposed to say in this certain way. Like you say, it's like that's how he said that thing, right? Um, and then for me, like kind of phase five is both this form of oratory and also prayer. And there's some similarities in terms of like if you just hadn't listened to this person talk, they probably wouldn't talk this way. But then once they're asked to do this ceremonial speaking, then it goes, yeah, well, and you got to keep it up in that high register. That's what, and to bellow it out. And what's really wild is like, I can give a speech, but I have to stop and think so much. And you could just see them when they're just flying through this stuff, which is just incredible. And not to say like we can't do that, but this is showing us where the mountaintop is. And then when you're doing prayer, you're also doing like if you watch Donawak when he gives a prayer in the beginning of Hashagun, he's Kwani, and so it's that same thing, like stays up there. And that's another thing that we should be pushing to maintain. So for me, those are sort of your realms of Tlingit speaking, and it has to do with the way you talk, what you talk about, the vocabulary, because once you're getting into here, there's all these, kanukin and kokahin. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Like it's not, it's almost like you heard them say in English, like about the ceremony. Can't do shortcut. You also can't shortcut your way through some of these speeches. So that's why we.
Sometimes
Ah,
Wanganese here, the word you just used, register, to mean these different types of speech for different situations. So what register is the speaker using, intimate, so informal, or, this highly formal for certain kind of situation, different registers.
yeah, what? Gonna cheesh. Yeah, and so that's why, like, here we're examining stories and speeches. Like, that's really the two things that we do in the oral literature course because but then there is also, I think, the next course that's maybe missing is just the day-to-day stuff. We gotta get better at that too, but I think it's always a balancing act with all of this stuff. It's funny. It's like a drum just sounding out, just ringing in his head. That's what it just rings off in their head. Clum. Okay.
One thing, just the way they speak, how they that speed, but how they run those words together.
Mhm.
So, kaya awune, or what is it? Wushya awudane. but they don't pause, eh?
Right.
It's just one word, eh? And I think it must be they would just say kaya wune like that, and it must sound so stilted to them, like the way I say it, eh? Like to do that little ya wune, because you don't need it, eh? You know, but they just, yeah, like you said, they just go for it, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, and when you're really hitting a rhythm like this, which you can, like you can get to this rhythm, but then you got to reach a point where when you're constructing this stuff, it's a lot less, you know, manual construction. It's like a probably it's like a if someone like is a construction worker, like they don't have to think about every single nail, like they hit it, right? But it's all about repetitive motion and also kind of unlocking these things and these patterns. And this one is really interesting because like at ya awune is what I was taught as respect, and there's a slightly different version that's popping up, which is ya atwune, which is interesting because it doesn't seem to follow the pattern of what the verb form is. And so I'm not sure where that version popped up, but I keep seeing it sort of around. And I don't want to say it's wrong because I don't know where it comes from. But like you see them here, wuchya awudene, like that's the noun pulled from the verb, and wuch ischan is the noun pulled from the verb. Um, yeah.
When this speech was finished, I just felt like needed to take a big long exhale or something. I can't imagine the amount of energy it would take to deliver a speech like this.
Yeah.
It's really amazing.
And there's so much to dive into here. Like even when he's kind of teasing, because it sounds like a drum ringing in their head, basically. It's you know, and he's just saying like these people sitting here listening to me and they don't understand me. It must just like yeah. But then he's just kind of laughing about it too, right? He's not really shaming anybody.
And Charlie, this conference, I call it conference in English, it was in 1981,
Yeah.
and Charlie passed away in 1984.
Oh wow.
So it wasn't, he didn't have that much longer after this big event. He paved the way for a new way of teaching and learning, because before this conference that all these elders from all over came, it was iffy. And the way I heard it at the time, all those not all of them, some of the elders that came were not all sure that they could buy into what he was proposing, what he was gonna ask them to do. But after they heard the kids and they saw the dances and they saw that Charlie, that they wanted to know, the kids wanted to know that, and they held on to it and they listened carefully to Charlie's instruction. They all realized that this was going to be a way. All of these speeches are talking about how this might be the way to keep our language, our culture, our people, our memories, our histories alive.
Sheesh. Yeah, and so these were pretty close to the last words of an awful lot of the folks who are talking here. And as they keep saying like unahiqa and unatiqa and utiqa, lest it happen, like so it doesn't happen. And then here we are making sure it doesn't happen, right? So it's really got to commend you all for answering the call and continuing to dive into this stuff. And it pushes you. I think every time you look at this, like you could read this 100 times, and then that 101st time, you're like, wait a minute, there's the thing. And especially listening to it as well. And we're not, you can look at the English later, you know, we're just going, we're trying to recreate kind of being there so that we can sort of launch off from that. And then, yeah, I guess we're getting.
So was this the singers here? What was this Charlie Joseph's SNEP, the first round of them?
They were all teenagers.
Hmm.
They were all teenagers.
So was it through SNAP?
Oh, yeah, right. Charlie was working with the SNAP program with Isabel Brady, and there was just teenagers. I was their van driver for 5 years from 76 to 80. Oh, it must have been through 81 because I worked through that. And yeah, and he worked with them. So they were so dedicated.
Do you want to explain a little bit about SNAP?
SNEP stands for Sitka Native Education Program. It started off as the Alaska Native Brotherhood Education Program. And then Isabel got deep into it and she got JOM funds and IEA funds to do the program. Normally these funds were used in the school district, but the Sitka School District agreed to let Isabel have it and to have it almost the whole funds, and she was able to gather. She couldn't get anybody to work with her until she got Charlie, and then when Charlie said let's do it, then maybe half a dozen other elders spent hours a day working with the kids for the first 3 or 4 years. It was pretty amazing.
And the program is still going.
I guess. When Isabel retired a few years after that, the funds were less and less effective, and they ended up getting talking to the Sitka School District to have it in the school facility so they could save money, and bit by bit it became more of a school district program, although it's still called quote SNP, and but half their employees are paid by the school district and the other half are probably paid under IEA or JOM funding. Or no, the tribe also covers 2 or 3 positions. Well, it's modified, but basically they do the same thing. The kids meet twice a week, and they learn songs. And then another day or 2 a week, they might have a chance to learn arts and crafts. They have probably a half an hour a week for learning language. It's kind of like this drop in the bucket, and they don't seem to be able to get into immersion or to get into serious language acquisition. But I guess, keeping a hold of the music and the dancing is really important too. I try not to judge them, but I would like them to do a lot more language acquisition, and they don't.
Oh, geez.
Speaking of language acquisition, we're going to make it to the end. Here we go. CD.
Hete juktajek nuk, te kautoa hawe. Haasis koos ades kaya kai. Kaas itewe. Kaas etewe. Ayai khatuustinin. Oyai tatawe. Yat. Atu. Yat khasawuti. Khatu shaisinuk. Takatatawe atayashikanisho. Akakshiwu. Kakontanetit. Shikishu. Chachtu what you take what the hetak. Atayahatu. Hiyawa. Chatekondehat na yo. Yaitat. Yaitat. Kwete yitahani. Nachat kukauti ay awe atsikaktus kukunawe atosatuichikautus kukuwe cheese hostuetak kunne uhan sakat tuita wasik ayate awe tuichikautus leku nachaushas iskochen tuyate kosasati awe yai that awe yai siki kuna cheese Yai that kicks at the Chikawahai, Patan. Saat. Kajak Pika Kahu, Sasakinu, Kahu Dai, Akawas and Nawutin, Yadahut, you in the Katin, Awakatite. You see, goes to do go continue.
257E. Probably needs some work.
The program this evening is indeed a meaningful one to get culture. Kajak 12 years ago never spoke English, and I'm taking that role tonight as though, and we wish to pay tribute and indeed thank yous, many thank yous to the young performers who came before us tonight. I believe little did you realize that the songs you sang were very close to sacred songs of Tlingit culture. As you were singing each piece, they wanted to get up and dance in response at the proper moment. It is a moving experience for many of them, so moving sometimes that they felt like they should shed some tears, because that is the heart of their culture, which you were striking at tonight. And so I wish to convey to each one of you dancers that for the time you've put into it, that you have gone into some meaningful things of this culture. That when my brother-in-law leaves this earth and others who are older leave, you may take their place. I listened to your drum beats and it was wonderful. I watched your dance movements and there is none better. I heard your singing and it is right up to par. And these are the things that come from the depth of the feelings of the people. And you have those words. And so, in the name of my grandparents and my tribe and clan, which is the Dog Salmon clan, the Akitan people, that I wish to convey also our heartfelt thanks, just as though my tribe, my clan, would set before you our Dog Salmon emblem, an appreciation for what you have done. And we put these up that you might see them, that it might bring you good luck or good blessing, and we would be blessed in return.
Yeah, so because you cherish you, because we cherish you also has the English speeches which are not in Hatu Nagu, yes. This was Qajakte. Jeesh. Okay, what was that?
I made a mistake earlier. I said this conference was in 81. It was in 1980.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. And then celebration was in 82?
That's right. That was the first celebration.
Yeah, so they took them 2 years to work on it. Okay. What's that?
When in 1980 was this conference? Like what month? Does anyone know?
That's a good question. It probably is. It might be in here.
I just asked if this would be so
Late in 1980, maybe? Huh, I don't know.
What was the question?
Oh, here it is, May 29th. When in 1980? See Alaska elders speak to the future in Shiatika Lodge and Sitka.
Yeah, my son Edward was about 3 months old at the time. That's how I
Shaqindus.
remembered it.
Is that his name?
Yeah, same as me. February 23rd.
Shaqindus tu akedusai.
Okay.
Okay.
Shakindus too.
Is that like a mountain or something?
Tlal chosaku, tlal an achin kawunik.
Sounds like
Gwasye, chutsuach tundatani.
counts to less than a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's his drum beats. It's really counting as drum beats.
Gwasye, just 2, yeah. Tlal chosaku.
Okay. Good sheesh.
Then Coneo, he knew it took. Connect, he knew a hayakin. Oh, I said, then Coneo, he. I think on Yana, Actwasi go. Connachtach Scottonike. Nike. En ik gewoon dit kan heel goed. Oh, zo. Kijk. Ik kan niet hassen. Kagon tan. Ik kan niet dat het ja. Ik tieke dag toe het is al. Ja. Tok. Ik had toch toe gekend. En ik gewoon dit kan het zo tie. En ik gewoon nou het. Waar kijk. Byron. Dus je kan het ook. Ik die gauw die hand. En ik gewoon niet de ooit. Zo zonnig zitten. Has ze ja. Ja, ik dacht dat ze zo gaat zes. Maar gaat zo toe. Ze kleine stek gaat je tie, gaat je tie. Ik nog had die gaat zo tie. Ja. Ga de goeste hout, daar is kasnik. Kos kan deze toe is kort te zeg. Het is de hout daar. Kan het cheese gaat terug. Ja, gaan.
What is that? Gwalgande shakde wush kaututle tsech. Maybe we pedal ourselves to the bathroom? Is that what? We kicked each other out there. Okay, we might stick with this version. We'll see, because there's some edited out situations. Okay. G. Now we do H.
Kijk. Van het cheese zo. Zij ook een koude kaart zo tot dit zo. Hartelijk ook gaan dat is genoeg je. Awe. Ja. Awe. Ja, dat. Jachska is nu goed again. Je toen ook ik had ook goed en tijd nee het is het kan niet. Ja. Awe. Ja, dat uit eten koud wat gewegen wat uit zien. Atje, je ga je het ge. Ja, gaat je zien het laat ons goed kou. Je was zeggen. Hat lief koos. Je zien nee. Daar tot gaat het we. Wacht hier ga. Atje, koud wat. Te koud gewoon we. Hartelijk was haar kakas, als de kustie, als de jokotanke. Ja, nou, tot die gaat het, had je kakiaket. Als je wat zo heet, als je wacht toe aan, ja, goed gedaket, had je kan nog eens koudikit, haar kakas gaat niet koos. Ja, dat we, ja, toe, ja, keek, jokotanke wat het je ek pote.
That's a big one. Okay, we gotta look at that one for a second. Hold on. Okay. Let's see.
That one was on page 312 in the last book for Healing Spirit.
Yeah. Well,
Mm.
okay. So a bunch of these, I did a retype for that language summit. I gotta find where I put it. Hold on a second. Hold on. Okay, I think this is where it's at. So just to do a little walkthrough with this one, because I think it's a big one. Ach ish iteqanech, my father's surviving relatives. And then here again we've got chakawayukdeo daqatch iyukatangi. Daqatch is for things to fall and sort of scatter. It also is, I think, the same verb root for being dizzy, confused, and to offend the animal spirits by something you say or do. Like we usually hear that one as ayach kutliqati, but we see early, if you want to look back, it's quite a ways, but you can look maybe later. It said chuk jiyakutliqati. They offended the dot with the cohos with something they did, like the salmon peoples. Big things. There wasn't a person who was able to grab them, to touch them. Shao Jachin, I think it's for something to come to a close or to come to open, maybe like a book. So a whole bunch of these ade verb yeah. And whenever you have those, it's like the way the verb happens, right? So ade, then you get really long, yeah. Ade ha inki niki yeah. The way you told it to me, right? And then the key for whether it gets this suffix or not. So this is what we call the attributive suffix. It's exactly the same as the possessive or relational suffix, but it always stays low. But if there's a vowel in the classifier, then you should expect that suffix. Otherwise, maybe not. So I would expect there achje ade ye jiwane ye. But if we listen real close, we might catch it too. They do use ziyak a lot here. I don't know if that's used as much today, ziyak and ziyagan. And then I think I'm going to jump down because this walks through like every speech that Kichnach made. And so I want to get to this one. There's such wonderful things through all of this, but I want to get specifically to this one because there was one where he's before it sank from our hands. Oh, that's such good stuff. The way our ancestors said things. Okay, so So here we've got it again. Chakawayichya was achi. So there's your dependent form. So you could say Tlesha tuwa ushka chakawayichya was achi. Iyukatangi, or what we don't want it to just echo off into space. Adesjini, the way they worked.
Are the lines lined up? If you go back to where, okay, the air.
I think I could probably redo this. I didn't want to
Oh, okay.
their translations,
Yeah.
but yeah, so like we could rearrange it so that the word or the words are matching, right? Like
Mm.
left to right, which I think would be the next step.
Mhm.
And I'd be happy to do that, yeah, because then you'd have yes, here the way you are working, we don't want, right? And so just like trying to match it up a little bit closer, which is not dishonoring or discrediting their translation. Like their intention was to say, let's make this sound as good in English as it does in Tlingit, because they were trying to address the lack of respect that people give to Tlingit literature who don't speak Tlingit. But what we're trying to do is turn it into a learning tool. So that's the only reason why we would probably switch it up a little bit. De a autushachaji at awe. It's something we had given up on already.
Oh man.
A hawakkiya ka. You told us what you told us to look at. It's really big stuff in here, right? You don't hear people say waqqiya ka, which would mean it has yawa, it has kowuka on there, which is to give someone send someone to do something usually. But you could put waq in front of it, and that means to command someone to look at something, to direct them to look at it. Ajoy kakau tu waket. This is why we untied it. That is why we untied it. De kautu akun awecha. We had already tried it, you see. Hatla shilkohas hatla kakas. Our mother's ancestors, our mother's grandparents, our mother's uncles. Hastu kosi, hastu yukatangi. Their way of life, their language. De autusha kaji at awehajiyis. It's something we had already given up on for ourselves. And so there's very heavy concepts that he's talking about here. And then hajik kakiyaket, you untied it for us. So he is addressing the young people. That's what he's addressing here is the young people. And then that gets us up to Achoetsuhete Shugachtutan. That is why we will open it again. Yayakuske Dakate, this box of wisdom. Hajik Dakate. That they all died off from it and that left it in our hands. Hakakas kahashilkohas yayidetewe. And then there was one more part that I wanted to, this one, because there was a little bit of this T was missing, because I kept trying to find this verb. And it means to move something just by nudging it, right? So we have just started nudging it just a little bit because it's something that's so heavy. The only way you can move it is by just giving it these little nudges. The way our ancient people used to do things. And this tlagu kwenki, Kingisi used to say it's not just ancient people, it's forever people. But it has to do with ancestors who are so far back that we don't even know. All we know is that they were there. We don't know any specifics. That's how I think of chak, chak in tlaku as chak, because it was a long time ago, but we can basically we know some of the pieces, right? Like the Kagwantan were here and the Shukachadi were here. But then when we get anything before the Ice Age, it goes into tlaku. Like we just know it happened. We don't know any single real details from it. Anyways, such good stuff. Such incredible, incredible stuff. And I'll put this version up for you folks, and then we can also work on a little bit more. And what do we got left? There's still some left. Hold on. But that one, it's a heavy hitter, that one. It's all the stuff that they're talking about.
Siisöwe. Jäi tätä liiskuitekanne jaaktaakua kut. Totoksi kuuju kotan jeusne. Jaakova haan nakaskautikit. Haat liiskuhas. Tushite nisöwe. Janiusa kautlichak hastukusti. Yi jatki kai isas kausi tehisi tekanne. Yinna kawen se kautlika awaha kausaha yinna kas kautikit atawai hastui tite hastui tikawai ushatawakik yekoni na tehlis koitakane. Achtuak esikuk achtatale شاو دليك ايات يقيليه يا خاصتي اتيو يا ان بيقا يسستهوت تتيك ايو ادخل توسيك يا ايو يا خالق تويتي سيستيس كبردس يقدك خكوتي يختج خلق ايال اتسخ يقيه ايو أختو أسكيلوت أكخيا لخكوت تأخسكات أتيخو أخت يخسيس قوس أتسخيا قايا كيكستي تشخلايا أختستي يا يسخط وصا يشيتك يقصكاو يا يكاخيش أكاخوتي كيكت يشيك تكاخ أقاوة ساختي تتواتي كاخ قطكت يو يسخط وساختي قاسكيك ساتي يا يتات تقول الأخصية يا تأقيل يخليك وهس أتشيو يا يتات يا يوق خطلك أختويك يا يتات يخليك قصاص دقيقة يك يوق خطلك يايدت اختوك اخيك يا يختويتي قياها تسقى يقاي يختس خلقيال هسبقيت اختي وياها سسختي لي يا يختولتيج أجيوت اختولتسيلوج يوهسخ اختي قيخ إيش أصلي يا لخا كقال تاليتي قيخت ستي لاويا يوتو ساقو لخ إيش ناويا يات يايدت ياك آتش قيه يا يخكاكس تشخل قسالي يا تاكس اوات تايوس قوسيات تكديتي خطيختواتي الخطتالي أتيا يكتاك خواكوت يكوت يختش خلق إسالي هستوك يا هستوشي دكتوكت تيك هلدت يا هستوشي دكتوك خواقيك يا كاوكه أتاك أختتالي يا كل شيء يختيجي لاقي تياغو يقطن جيك يودك قطي يا تتشكوت ياك ستقيق نخليش كوهس ويقطن جيسا كوخساني قنكونا يت كوخاني كخطشاش شاوة كي كوتسيخت يوون Siakatu, Ateakuko Hayat, Kahacha Shao, Yao Te Yana Kekatuki, Kiato, Yakatutlaki, Yoataya to Watan, Yat at Chikotawa, you the potato again, Ayatitan, Kato to Osko, Yaka Yatakan, the Hokute, Huja Isako, Joko, Kotanik. Yeah, you know us. There was a man, his name Dr. Johnson. You all know him. Talk, what it? And there's no man walked on the sea. You all know it. That's the salt water out there. But this is the man that walked on the sea. Roy Pradovich had to be a witness to watch his uncle had walked on the sea. He looked at it. Hassan is happy with the yak. At your yak over. Mr. Brown. Tak Hassan. Hayak is here. Chacha yi Sunday what's a hin who kakia good. Talk what the. Yeah, we and show what I'm gonna teach. Yeah, thank you very much. Well, it's a year away. I think it's a tea. We can cut it short, and still we made it. We cut it short because Roy and Mr. Brown one day step out tonight. You know, we can see it on his face, so we cut it short. Thank you very much.
Okay. 6 minutes to reflect. Right. Pen go. So we left on 64. And I don't think there's very many left, but LMNOP. So I do think we have 4 left, but we'll do them next week. Another 3-hour dip in the ocean. So, okay. Any thoughts, questions?
Yeah, I wrote something in the chat. I was listening, thinking, basically, hopefully, a formula that we can make. It would be fun. The song and dance leads to language, or the introduction to language, and then song, dance, and language, or leads to cultural practices, the cultural ultimately success. And then associating song and dance with introduction, because I think of continuous and how to do it properly.
Oh, your audio is breaking up a little. It's hard to hear you. Sounds
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, so that just popped into my head while listening to all that. Does that sound about right or make sense?
Yeah, well, I think the connection of all these things is really interesting, and then how we reconnect them is also really interesting. Because, yeah, Nora once told me you could tell the entire history of the Tlingit people through song. Hundreds and hundreds of songs. And some people, like who went through Snap, like they'll bust out a songbook that's just a gigantic binder. And there's quite a few of them who could just sing any of them, right? Just right off, and that's so much hard work from Khashat and Dastiya. And then when we get to the culture has this way of being, which there's a lot of people who don't speak Tlingit, who know that they could run a ku'ik, they could do the culture, they could do so much stuff, they could tell you what needs to happen. And then the language ties those things together and also ties together this whole thought world. Like especially like if you really dig into here, like the deep level metaphors that they're going through, like, because you could say, oh yeah, we barely understand. We're just beginning to understand the way people used to do things long ago. But then if you dig into the language, you're like, yeah, but it's like we're just pushing that lid open a little bit. And then it creates so many visual things because Tlingit, the language encodes so much stuff. Like you could just say like by saying, ugh, tan, hand me that empty container. Like all that thing, it's all encoded in there and all of that stuff. Uh, and then there's also these cultural things, like sometimes when people walk into a ku'ik, they'll say, "Goksaye kwanuk yakunanachi." Anybody know why they say that? Goksaye kwanuk yakunanachi.
That's what Raven said when he was busting into a party.
Yeah, so Raven was invited to this ku'ik that the landdaughters were holding, and he told Gidzanuk, who's like his little cousin, he's like, "I want to go. I heard everybody just gets one half of a cod head." It's like I want to go and be hungry, but maybe go see what they got. And so he comes back. He's like, it's like they got all kinds of food. And he's like, well, I want to go, but I don't want to be late. So he pretended to be blind. And then he walked over there, and when he came in, he yelled up, where is this foreign dignitary going to sit? Um, and then some people still do that today, but that's how the language ties to the culture, to the stories, to the songs. Because otherwise you are just sort of echoing it. It is echoing into space if you don't have the language. But that doesn't mean you can't do it too, because I used to sort of be like, wow, all you gotta know is the songs. But the songs can get people excited, and then that could lead them into the language. And it was the Hawaiians who corrected me from that. They said, well, everybody loved hula. And then all of a sudden they're speaking Hawaiian. And then all of a sudden we say, oh, you know what? You speak Hawaiian. Let's just keep it going. So everything feeds back into itself, into this idea of kaduk, which is to be whole. And so to get back to being whole, which is wild because like the verb root there is skin, right? So coming back to skin, kaduk would be like for it to be solid. That's how like Nori's she'd be like, it's solid, you know, and so that's what we're trying to get back to. And then the success is like Kajakti said, people who know who they are don't hurt themselves. And then if you know who you are, that means the language ties you. Like that's why Kasech said Hausanecha Yukatangi, which is which is true. And I told the other Tlingit class the other night, I said, and then one time I said to Nora, Chatwasanecha Yukatangi. And she said, me too. I was crazy. So I said the language saved me. And she said, me too, you know. And so, yeah, I do like, you know, because you can pull the parts apart and see how they connect and then show how it all pulls together and to see what happened on this one incident in 1980, right? 42 years ago. And then here we are, like still looking at the pieces of what happened in this thing. It was it was long, but it was still it fits on two tapes, right? So it was a couple hours, right? So it wasn't forever. Um, but then in say in the course of a couple hours, all this stuff happened. All these things were said. It's incredible. Like you have that one that was an 8 minute speech. That's probably one of the biggest speeches that could ever be made. Just like the types of things that are in there, the types of language, and really studying this stuff in depth will keep us from saying, you know, I'm not trying to say anything bad about anybody. Remember, I saw someone give a speech. I was like, that was incredible. And then a couple months later, I saw him give a speech again. I was like, that's the exact same speech. So, which is, you know, it's a starting point, but it's got to launch off so that you can potentially have moments like this where it all happens and I'm sure they knew a lot of what they wanted to say, but a lot of it was spontaneous too. Well, I'm thankful for everyone who did the work to get this stuff recorded and to get it translated and transcribed is hard work. And it's still hard work. There's still hundreds of hours of stuff we can still keep working on.
And sheesh for all the work. Just a question. All the people are speaking. Did the community just consider them regular folks, or were they the leaders of the community?
That's a good question. One of my theories is that if you went back in time, pre-contact days, and you had 300 people living in a place, you'd probably only have 4 or 5 of them that could do this kind of stuff. So I think it was probably like they're the ones who had mastered the language. That's probably why they selected them to speak, because like those ones who could speak, like because you can see some of, you know, it's like a the ultimate jam band or something. It's like, oh yeah, you okay? Well, we know that you can't really play the guitar, so maybe you just sit and listen to this one. And so I think that's as they were coordinating this stuff, and I'm sure they had Kajakti and others do a lot. And so they probably planned a lot of that stuff out. Like, okay, so and so is going to talk, and they would choose them based on because they knew what kinds of things needed to happen, and the words that they used were the things that I think that propelled it into motion. Because if you study those Raven stories and stuff, when he starts talking a certain way, you're like, well, he's going to get it now because he's talking that way. And that's what those things teach us, which is shukachchuchs, which is one of my favorite words ever. The first time I heard it, we're working on a Raven story. Anybody know what that one is? Shukachchuchs. We're working on a Raven story, and Raven starts yelling something. He's like, right? And so, and then Shukshani, Marge Dudson, she goes, there he goes again. Shukachchuchs. And I was like, what's that? She's like, that's what he's doing. He's going to make it happen because he starts talking like that. I was like, oh, okay. And then we worked on this Kuchain Raven story, and he's like, and then he sings a song. I was like, well, there's that word again. And then every now and then you have these moments where you keep encountering the same word, like it's presenting itself to you. Then I was flying to Fairbanks for a language gathering, and I ran into Kingisti in the Anchorage airport, and we had breakfast. And I said, what does this word mean to you? Shukachchuchs. And he says, oh, that's calling the end back to the beginning. And so the verb root is chuch, which is to summon something. Sh is built in there, which is the end. The S apostrophe means it happens in this repeating pattern. But it has a bunch of uses. And one of the most common uses is to compose a love song to the opposite clan that requires a response. We'll end on that one.
Yeah,
And sheesh.
sheesh.
Geez, Johan.
The nest cheese.
Nik echt.